So I think that's all housekeeping, and hopefully a couple more people have been able to join us by now. So in terms of introductions, my name's Lucy Sparks. I work for the John Muir Trust, which is a conservation charity that's dedicated to the protection, repair and experience of wild places. And I am the John Muir Award Scotland Inclusion Manager, which is a bit of a mouthful, but basically I work with a lot of youth work organisations across Scotland. And today I'm delighted to have Jenny Snell joining us from YouthLink Scotland. Jenny, if I just pass over to you, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And just a wee reminder as well for everyone on the call, if you can mute yourselves just now, it just helps with any interference as well. That would be fab. So I'm Jenny Snell, I'm from YouthLink Scotland, and my role at YouthLink is to lead on the I Will campaign, which is a campaign to increase youth social action for young people. And I also lead on the Learning for Sustainability remit as well. So anything to do with kind of outdoor learning, global citizenship, sustainable development. So that is why I'm along today, to kind of speak to you guys about what YouthLink is doing and how we can support the youth work sector. So yeah, thanks, Lucy.
Brilliant, thanks Jenny, really great to have you along again this week. And the other two people worth introducing on the call are two of my colleagues from the John Muir Trust. They're going to be helping, as you've probably already seen in the background, helping things run smoothly, also manning that chat box. So if you've got any questions, do ask them. Guys, if I just come to you if you want to introduce yourselves quickly. Toby?
Hello, my name's Toby Clark. I work for the John Muir Trust as well, and I manage the John Muir Award in Scotland.
And Jenny.
Hello, yes, I'm Jenny. I work with Toby and Lucy on the John Muir Award team as well. Thanks.
Great. So the reason we're running this session is I think we've been very aware of a lot of challenges that the pandemic has brought about in recent months, but at the same time we've also seen a lot of really creative, really fantastic examples of how people have been adapting in the youth work sector and maybe doing things a bit differently, encouraging young people to engage with nature in safe ways during the pandemic as well. And at the same time, we're aware of a lot of increased interest in maximising outdoor space and really making the most of that at the moment, particularly as restrictions have been starting to lift. So this session today is very much an introduction. The things that we're going to cover are looking at the benefits of nature connection and also a bit of troubleshooting around some common concerns and challenges that you might have around getting started outdoors. There's some really useful YouthLink Scotland guidance that we'll signpost you towards. There'll be some opportunity for you to share your ideas about what works well for you in getting outdoors, as well as an introduction to the John Muir Award, how it can help, and some signposting to some key resources that hopefully will be really helpful in getting you started. So that's what we're planning to cover. And like I say, it's going to be a little bit of a whistle-stop tour, but hopefully lots of opportunities for you to be sharing your thoughts as we go. So before we dive in to this question of why get outdoors in the first place, there was just one more thing I wanted to mention. I think when we talk about the outdoors, when we talk about wild places today, what I'm really thinking of is that whole spectrum of wild places. So those remote, those rural, those really open landscapes that you might have access to, perhaps particularly if you're in a rural community or via trips, residentials, excursions that you might usually do. But we're also just as much talking about those nearby nature spaces. So things like local green spaces, local blue spaces, perhaps more urban nature environments as well. So when we're talking about the outdoors today, that's what I've got in mind, and hopefully that's what you've got in mind as well. I think all of these nature spaces, whether they're really big or they're really small, there's so many benefits that they can offer for nature connection. And that is exactly what we're going to start with. So we're going to move into WooClap. So as I said, this web link that you can see on the screen in front of you, www.wooclap.com/outdoors. If you can type that into a new tab on your browser or on a different device so that you can open up that web page, then you should be able to hopefully see this question and participate. So the question that I'd like your thoughts on are, what do you think are the benefits of encouraging young people to connect with nature? So hopefully on your screen you'll see a text field, and you can add a word, you can add a short phrase. Either of those work better than, say, a sentence, and you can also enter more than one response. So do feel free to get typing and share your thoughts with us. I can see the first few starting to come in there already. And as you probably know, with word clouds, the bigger the word, the more people that have put in that particular word or phrase. So nice to see health absolutely in the centre there. Seeing physical health as well, mindfulness, that's a really nice benefit. Positive mental health as well, so health and well-being really strong. What else do we have here? Respect for the environment, yeah, that's a really big benefit. Climate action as well, I can see there. We're going to talk a little bit more about that just a little bit later on. What else have we got? Adventure, it's moving so fast I can't even see now. Any of my colleagues, do feel free to chip in if there are things that catch your attention there as well. Self-confidence, that's a really important one, I think. Easy conversation as well, that space for maybe chatting to people, relationship building. Loads of great stuff coming in.
Yeah, I think it's great to see health really at the heart of that, and calming, relaxed, informal as well. And I think the messages that we're all receiving through the recovery phase of whether that's youth work or curriculum is very much health and well-being at the heart. So I think that's really positive to see that.
Definitely, so much great stuff coming through. What I will be doing, and I'm more than happy to add these to the summary email as well, is we'll take a screenshot of all the ideas that you've come up with and circulate that as well, because there's absolutely loads of great stuff there. But we're going to keep our pace and move on from that one just for now. And certainly lots of these benefits that you've highlighted here are things that we really wanted to talk to you about today. The things that we really see the benefits of. Oh, I don't want to move away. It's so good. There's so much there, but I'm going to have to. So these are a few key things that we really wanted to flag. There's so many benefits. We could talk about it for hours, but don't worry, we won't today. But this quote at the top, this is from the Barn Youth Centre in Glasgow. They deliver the John Muir Award, but they also deliver absolutely loads of other awards, Duke of Edinburgh Award, different youth achievement awards as well. And through conversation with them, something that really came out and that's reflected in that word cloud, I think is really important, is this space. So having space for dialogue, maybe space that can make young people feel a bit freer, easier to talk, just being in a different environment. And I think it's really important that when we're talking about the benefits, we're not just thinking about, as professionals, as practitioners, what we see as the benefits, but that we're also thinking about those young people's voices and asking them. And through the John Muir Award, things that often crop up in conversation through young award participants, opportunity to try new things, to just have fun, to do things that maybe they've just not had the experience of before, is something that's really valued. That change of environment, maybe also with that a change of pace in terms of what they're doing, can be really valuable. Health and well-being we saw in the word cloud as another one, and also that opportunity to maybe really see the impact that you can have in a natural environment in terms of the actions that you can do, and to really recognise that sense of pride in terms of what young people can kind of take away from that experience. So if youth voices around benefits is of interest, later on we'll share a link to our Young People and Nature web pages. There's a great summary from some co-designed research that we did called the Braw Outdoor Question that I'd recommend having a look at. So these few things that I've flagged up here, I guess these are things that crop up all the time in our conversations, and I think are really important. In terms of fun and new experience, I really hope that we see those benefits not just for young people, but also for leaders themselves. I think the outdoors will always offer you something completely different. Even if you're using the same space, you'll have different weather, you'll have different wildlife, you'll have different seasons, you'll do different things, and even on different days, you'll just be feeling in different ways, and that will change the experience as well. So there's always something new. In terms of spending time outdoors together as well, perhaps particularly at the moment. A lot of people are talking about the benefits just to bond and re-socialise, and perhaps for young people who've not seen their friends for a long time since the schools have been closed. So that's a really important benefit too. Health and well-being, as we saw in the word cloud, so many facets to it. It's something we could talk endlessly about. There's certainly a growing body of evidence really about the value of this. Something that's worth having a look at would be the 5 ways to well-being from the New Economics Foundation. So these are 5 evidence-based actions that individuals can use to help them improve their own health and well-being. Really popular with schools, really popular with SAMH, so it's something that I'm sure many of you will have come across. We've done a little bit of work in terms of looking at those 5 ways to well-being and thinking about how those can be put into action in wild places. So there's some lovely ideas there if you're looking for something to get started, and health and well-being is a particular priority. Again, we'll share all these links with you. The other thing I wanted to just flag up, because it comes up time and time again in conversation, is this skills development benefit from spending time outdoors. And I think we see this really very much practical skills. It might be new opportunities to do different things, conservation work, but also just as much those really important soft people skills. Time and time again, both young people and youth workers talk to us about the benefits that have come about of just things like teamwork and building communication skills, just in a different space, a different way of working, and really creating those opportunities for young people to succeed who may not always succeed in an academic or an indoor environment, just creating these different opportunities for young people to thrive. So those are the things I wanted to highlight. And what I'm going to do just now is pass you over to Jenny, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about benefits in relation to youth social action and learning for sustainability. Jenny, over to you.
Perfect. Yeah, so just a quick overview for anyone who's not really aware of what learning for sustainability is, or for some people who've maybe heard the term but not quite sure what it is or how it links to their work. Learning for sustainability is an educational approach. So it's an approach that enables young people and educators, both formal and informal, so teachers and youth workers, community kind of capacity builders, to build a socially just, sustainable and equitable society. And as an approach, it links in with some key policy areas and drivers. So it links in with the Sustainable Development Goals, the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child, the Curriculum for Excellence. So it's very relevant to a youth work context and our youth work outcomes, which is all encompassed by the UNCRC. And as you can see on the word cloud, learning for sustainability covers a wide range of topics. So sustainable development education, global citizenship, political literacy, and then what we're kind of speaking about today is that outdoor learning and connections with nature. And I suppose one of the things I want to highlight is that the different strands of learning for sustainability that you can see all contribute significantly to young people's development of values and skills and knowledge, awareness and confidence that young people in Scotland need so that they can engage confidently and optimistically with some of the challenges that we're facing in society, and some of the challenges that we're facing more broadly across the world as well. So being able to support young people to connect with nature and the environment and the outdoors has a huge range of benefits, like just as Lucy mentioned. But thinking about learning for sustainability, it's that connection from local kind of issues to global social change that really stands out. So yeah, and then I think the second thing is I was going to speak about is youth social action. So if we could kind of jump ahead. We at YouthLink Scotland, like I said earlier in my introduction, are the lead for the I Will campaign in Scotland, which is a campaign that aims to increase the number of opportunities for young people to take part in youth social action activities. And what we mean by youth social action is anything that makes a difference to communities, society, the environment, other people. So things like volunteering, campaigning, fundraising, activism, befriending, a huge kind of range of different activities that make a difference to other people within society. And what we're kind of doing is working across sectors in Scotland, so across business, across health, across the environment, across formal education, to help enable, empower and equip young people to have a voice, to take action and to make a difference. And then part of that is, like I said, connecting with the environment and the environmental kind of organisations. So we have our I Will for Nature sub-campaign, which champions the kind of role that young people can play through their individual and collective actions. And some of the benefits that we've seen from this is that young people having a voice and being able to take action has helped to reduce environmental impact, take action for the kind of climate change and the climate emergency, protecting wildlife, enhancing habitats, whilst also kind of improving that health and well-being that was mentioned earlier, and increasing the knowledge that young people have and their peer groups and families and communities have about the environment and about how individual action can make a difference. So we kind of know that, like at I Will for Nature level, there's lots of benefits, but more broadly, I suppose youth social action has huge benefits for maybe a quadruple benefit. So it has benefits for the young people involved, organisations who are supporting young people to get involved, the local communities, wider society, and the environment. And then the final thing I just wanted to kind of flag was our most recent Power of Youth social action survey, which was carried out in 2019, and that highlighted that the vast majority of young people are eager to make a difference and want to make the world a better place. So we know that there's huge motivations and appetite for young people to take action. We see young people in climate strikes, we see young kind of climate activists or young people as activists more generally. And from a YouthLink perspective, we think it's definitely our role as youth workers to be able to support them to do that, to offer them the opportunity to engage in those critical and reflective conversations, to strengthen the connection between local action and global social change, and I think most importantly for young people to be able to see the tangible difference that their actions are having on others and the environment and nature and the world. So yeah, that was just a wee kind of overview of LFS and social action, but if anybody has any questions on any of those, just feel free to kind of drop me a message in the chat.
Wonderful, thank you, Jenny. And yeah, I can definitely second that Power of Youth Social Action Impact Report is a really, really wonderful read. So I definitely highly recommend going and having a look at that and seeing what young people are saying themselves. You know, it's a really wonderful and engaging read. So just to wrap up in terms of benefits, I think what we've seen is that there are absolutely loads of benefits on offer, and that you can hopefully see ways that can fit with your own priorities. I think this model is a really nice summary of just the opportunities that are really there for young people. So these experiences, outdoors, in nature, fun and adventure, can all feed into these opportunities for doing something practical, really making a difference, for using your voice, for caring for nature, and also this understanding that comes with it, and these opportunities for these to all reinforce. So hopefully there's a way in there for whatever might be the hook to get the young people that you're working with interested in the key priorities that you're looking to work with them around. So we do recognise that it's wonderful to talk about benefits, and I think it's something that we would all happily stay online and chat to you for a lot longer about. But there are also sometimes perhaps challenges to getting outdoors, or things that you might be particularly concerned with when it comes to taking youth work outdoors. So we're going to go back to WooClap. Hopefully your WooClap page will automatically load this new question. If it doesn't, just hit that refresh button on your browser and hopefully it will pop up. And again, we're just looking for your thoughts, so whether that's a word, whether that's a phrase, and you can enter more than one as well. What kind of things are cropping up so far? Weather, okay, always lots of weather appearing. Confidence, so that might be confidence of the young people, but perhaps also confidence of the leaders in terms of knowing what to do when you get out there, in terms of feeling, I guess, comfortable in an outdoors environment. What else have we got? Some things around sort of I'm seeing insurance, travel, what else have we got? Physical ability, that's an interesting one, and behaviour as well. I think that is also an important one. Injuries, so some stuff there cropping up around perhaps hazards, risks, and linked to that risk assessments as well. Any of my colleagues, do feel free to jump in if there are things that you're spotting.
Interesting to see access to green space there and other people and using it. And there was something that they do move quickly, but there was something there around safeguarding, obviously, expertise. But yeah, it looks like confidence, weather, safety and equipment, leader knowledge. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's trouble with these word clouds is you see one and you think, oh, that's really interesting, and then it moves and it's gone. And I've just lost whatever I was going to come back to. But I think there's some really important things here, and there's certainly things that crop up quite often in conversations. So I'd say you're not alone in some of these being concerns or challenges that you might have. So again, this isn't something that we have time to unpack every single one of these, but something that perhaps is useful for you to know is we're going to talk through some of these just now and troubleshoot some of these challenges, but we're also going to feed back these kind of inputs to Education Scotland, for example, in terms of perhaps what challenges are there, what concerns do people have, what further support might be useful. So that's something that we'll be doing. Also, I'm aware that Education Scotland are running a series of outdoor learning webinars. Each one of them, it has a particular focus. So there's one on using digital tools outdoors. I think there's one on numeracy in particular, and various other topics. Again, we'll share the link to that, and if there are key things there that stand out for you, that might be something to go and have a look at and see whether that can help as well, perhaps particularly in terms of just building that confidence in areas that you don't currently feel so confident in.
And Lucy, just to cut in there, there's going to be a specific Education Scotland webinar for this coming academic year based around CLD, and Education Scotland have asked us to collate these insights and share it with them. So you are contributing to further CLPL, further professional learning as well. So yeah, all this stuff is really, really useful.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to move us on to a few things that I think most of these, actually, perhaps all but one or two, have already cropped up in the word cloud. These are certainly things that people talk to us about quite frequently, and that crop up in conversation. So I did just want to run through a few of these, not to unpack them in detail, but hopefully just to try and make a couple suggestions of things that I've known have worked for other youth work organisations that we've been involved with that might be worth you considering for your own settings as well. So the first one at the top there, I think this is really, really common, weather and lumped together with that clothing, kit, equipment, kind of making the most of what you've got or getting what you need perhaps to make the most of the weather that we have in Scotland. I think it's true that if you've got the right kit, it can make getting out in all weathers a wonderful experience. There's so much for young people to really enjoy from that. But if expectations aren't set for the young people, or you don't have that kit, it can be a barrier. So a couple of suggestions around that. Firstly, I'd highly recommend having a think about any community partners that you might work with, or schools, for example, that you have partnerships with, who may have some kit or clothing. Often organisations are able to maybe share things. You might not need them all at the same time, so well worth having a look to see what's in your neighbourhood, who's there that might be able to help and support you. There are also a range of funds and grants out there that are worth looking into. Depending on your organisation, depending on who you work with, will always depend on what you're eligible for. But a couple that spring to mind are Outkit Foundation. They have a grant scheme called Go Nice Places, Do Good Things. Kit and equipment that you might need to really get those young people out into nature is something that those grants can be used for. So well worth looking at that. The other one that I know organisations have had success with for kind of kit and equipment in particular is Tesco Bags of Help grants. They have an environmental focus, and that's something that can help as well. Creative Star is also a great site that has a huge list of grants and funds. Some of them are regional, some of them are national, but it's well worth going in and just having a scan depending on where you're based. And I know we've got people joining us from all across today. So that's something that you can have a look at as well. Just as important as the kit side of things, I think, is maybe that mindset aspect when it comes to weather. So perhaps also important to just think about ways that you can get young people and perhaps even colleagues sometimes on board with setting expectations, getting them involved in planning so that they know they're going to be going out, even if it's not wonderful sunshine every time. And so getting them involved early can really help, and maybe also set their expectations so that they know that on days when they're heading out into the woods, they know not to wear their absolutely favourite trainers that they love and adore and that they don't want to get muddy. So things like that can really be helpful. So on your word cloud, safety, hazards, risks, injuries, I saw some things like that cropping up. All of your organisations will have your own procedures that need to be followed. I think site visits is something that crops up time and time again, and dynamic risk assessments that can really help to keep everyone safe, regardless of the conditions that you might have on a particular day when you're out and about. Again, I'd encourage you to make use of colleagues, make use of maybe local partners who might know the area. And this probably links into the next point as well in terms of awareness of green space. You know, it might be places that you've not been to very much before. So using other people's knowledge and expertise can be really helpful. There's also an image on the slide there of Beyond Your Boundary. This is an SMH project, which is targeted at schools, but they've produced some guidance that I think is really helpful, just to really anyone that's looking to get outdoors more. It's called 6 Steps to Using Local Green Space for Outdoor Learning. It's got some really practical, really useful guidance and kind of questions that can help with maybe identifying a site that's suitable and working through that process in terms of risk assessments and planning, and just things to consider as well. So definitely worth taking a look if that's something that you think is maybe a bit of a challenge for you. Couple other things to highlight. So in terms of accessing green spaces, if you have no idea where to start in terms of what might be local to, say, a youth centre or somewhere where you work, the OS Green Space Map is a wonderful resource. It's free, it's interactive, you can search for local nearby green spaces, and sometimes maybe staying local can help overcome transport barriers that you might have. It's wonderful to get away to perhaps different environments where possible, but sometimes there's also benefits of staying maybe more local. You can have more time in that space, you can visit it more frequently, and it's maybe somewhere where the young people might have a bit of a stronger connection if it's in their local community, that they can really grow and nurture that sense of caring for. So those are all good things to consider as well. I think behaviour, and the word I've remembered now, the one that intrigued me on the word cloud was convincing, and I'm going to assume that that's probably convincing people to go outside in the first place. I think something that often is highlighted to us is that people's behaviour and the mindsets of young people in particular can just be different when they're in an outdoors space. Maybe it's more space, maybe it's that feeling of freedom that you can get when you're outside, but the atmosphere can shift. And sometimes maybe those that you might be a bit concerned about behaviour can be totally different in the outdoors. You might see a completely different side of some individuals than you would if you were indoors doing activities with them. So that's something that can really help with perspectives. And again, I think the other things that I would come back to are taking opportunities to get young people involved early on, get them involved in planning, see what they want to do, what captures their attention. That can really help to set boundaries and expectations and to get their buy-in to the activities that you want to do. I think also maybe the one thing that nature really offers is that opportunity to see the tangible improvements that you can make to a space, and that's something like before and after photos can have, for example, a huge impact on how engaged and how proud people can feel about what they achieve. Right, I'm going to try and whittle through the last couple of these things. So leader confidence and skills. I'd certainly say never feel like you need to be an environmental expert to get outdoors. I would hate for that to be a barrier for people to not go out. Things that can be helpful, maybe think about pooling your skills and knowledge with colleagues. What do they know? Could you skills share? Could you set up a team meeting so that you can try things out together, try them out on each other before you take your youth group out? You also don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's absolutely loads of stuff that's available that could help you to get started, give you ideas that you can try out and see what works for you. We're going to signpost to resources in particular later on in the session. Perhaps the flip side of this, and this comes into lack of time for planning perhaps as well, there is loads out there. It's a great thing on the one hand, but it's perhaps easy to also get a little bit overwhelmed when you're trying to think about what it is that you're going to do when you're outdoors. So I'd say if planning time is tight, and if this is very new, don't feel like you need to go and read everything or look at every possible resource before you make decisions about what it is that you want to try out. Maybe give them to the young people, see what captures their attention, maybe scan the list yourself, see what just looks like it resonates, and just go and give it a whirl. And by trying it out, you'll get a sense of what's worked well, and you can build from there, and it will give you a bit of a launch pad to get started. Okay, so final thing that we put on this list is COVID-19 impact and restrictions. Obviously, it's something that's on all of our minds at the moment in particular, and things are still changing. Things I know are still quite uncertain. But we did want to just highlight some really useful guidance that YouthLink Scotland in particular have pulled together. So I'm going to pass you back across to Jenny, who's going to just talk to us briefly about what's there that can help.
Yeah. So first of all, I just wanted to kind of highlight some interesting kind of data recently that's been coming out that I thought was worth sharing, just to kind of provide a bit of context. So a recent 2020 survey by Ipsos Mori found that 84% of Scottish public are concerned about climate change and the environment. And within that, the concern was highest amongst young people. So those aged 16 to 24 had, I think there was 96% said that they were concerned. We also have recently been working on our YouthLink, our youth work strategy. So YouthLink Scotland's been engaging with thousands of young people and representatives from across the youth work sector. And one of the kind of key priorities that came out for the development of the new National Youth Work Strategy is the environment and climate change. And then finally, as part of a kind of COVID response, we were working with Young Scot and Scottish Youth Parliament to develop a survey that went out to about 2,500 young people across Scotland called the Lockdown Lowdown Survey. And then as part of follow-up on those surveys, we did mini surveys every week. One of those mini surveys was focused on climate change and the environment and the impact that COVID had on the environment. And I was quite kind of shocked by the kind of feedback from young people on that, because I had kind of thought that young people would have thought that the sorry, phone's gone off. Thought that one of the kind of they would have been quite positive about the impact on the environment and climate change, because we had we were locked down, carbon emissions were looking a bit lower, but actually it came back with 70% of the respondents said that they were concerned about the impact of COVID. And some of the reasons for that was including that there was more cars on the road, so we were not able to use public transport. There's more rubbish and fly tipping being left because recycling centres aren't open. People are using parks and kind of green spaces more, but they're not picking up their litter afterwards. And also that there's more kind of non-disposable items being used. So plastic coffee cups are getting used a lot more. Single-use, like kind of protective equipment like masks are getting used a lot more. So that's just kind of worth thinking about, and in the kind of bigger kind of picture is that young people are kind of really concerned about that, and this is a real priority. So that connection with nature, protecting wildlife, biodiversity, green spaces, and wanting to take action for the planet is really high on their kind of priority list. And I think that's become even stronger since the pandemic. So there's a real opportunity for us as a whole kind of cross-sector society, but especially within the youth work sector, to be building back better and to be creating a world that is more just, more sustainable, more equitable, and generally just a bit kinder to the planet. And with some of that in mind, and some of the challenges that we're facing in COVID, as the National Youth Work Agency, we have been working to support the youth work sector through a series of recovery documents, which you can find on our website. So we've got recovery, we've got a kind of a guiding framework that supports youth work through the whole kind of phased approach to returning to youth work. So thinking about when we can go back into centres, thinking about when we can have larger groups outside, going back to residential centres, that sort of stuff. We have a specific education recovery document. We have a recovery document on detached youth work, so supporting youth workers to kind of do outreach work, and supporting kind of young people just through and out of lockdown. So we've got a video that's directed like at young people as well, so that they can see what youth workers are doing to kind of support them. And then I suppose the most kind of relevant one for this kind of webinar is the outdoor learning and education recovery document that we've produced with a kind of collection of environmental organisations as well. We're involved in that, so that's kind of just offering some perspective around how the outdoor learning sector can support the education recovery, but also kind of how youth work can support that as well by kind of taking youth work outdoors and connecting with nature and supporting young people to connect with nature. So they're all on our website, and you can we'll send the links out to them as well. But yeah, if anybody has any questions or anything on that, we're continuing to develop more guidance as we go. So there's stuff going to be coming out around employability. So yeah, just kind of keep your eyes peeled for that.
Brilliant, thanks so much, Jenny. And yeah, there's really is so much useful guidance on the YouthLink Scotland website, so well worth a look. And I think that message around that this is coming from young people in terms of interest in taking action and knowing how they can take action, it's something really important. It's something that people are talking about a lot, and so there's a really good opportunity there. So in thinking about talking a lot, I feel like I've done a lot of talking at you, so we're going to move into breakout spaces just now. So this is an opportunity for you to talk to each other in smaller groups, and these are the key questions that we have in mind for you to talk about. So what stuff have you tried outdoors with young people, and in relation to that, what works well for you? So you might like to think about this in terms of some of the challenges and concerns that were flagged. You might just like to share your own experiences or ideas of things that you might like to try. So the way we're going to work this is we're going to have breakout spaces through teams. When you get into your breakout space, and please don't leave just yet, what I would love is for you to turn on your microphones, get chatting to each other. If one person could kindly volunteer themselves in each breakout space just to note down a couple of key headlines, the types of things that you talk about, that would be really great. We're going to have just a short time for feedback when we come back together. A note about logistics: when you want to return to the main session, and we'll aim to come back together at say at 5 o'clock. There are a couple of options. It might look a bit different depending on how you're accessing the webinar today in terms of what this looks like for you, but fingers crossed you should be able to wiggle your mouse over the screen, and hold bar, as you can see at the bottom of that slide, should show up, and you should be able to just click the play button, and that will bring you back to this current meeting, which will be staying open. If for any reason that doesn't work or you can't find the bar, don't worry, just go back to the meeting link that's in your joining instructions, and that will also bring you back to the main meeting. I'll be hanging around in the main meeting just now, so if you have any issues with joining breakout spaces, come and talk to me about it. But otherwise, I'm going to hand you over to Jenny Holmes, who's going to give you some instructions to how to join those spaces just now.
Hello, thanks Lucy. I've just posted 3 different breakout spaces in the chat box, and I've popped people's names under different breakout spaces. So if you want to check where your name is, I'm also going to read them out as well. And then if you just want to follow the link to get to your breakout space. So for breakout space 1, I've got Bev, Ruth, Carol, Gillian C, Pam R and Jenny. For breakout space 2, I've got Jan, Pamela, Robert, Isla, Gillian A and Vicky. And for breakout space 3, I've got Pam, Robert, Lee, Hannah and Miss Wilson. Okay.
Wonderful, thanks Jenny, super organised. So hopefully that makes sense. Get clicking on those breakout space links, and we'll aim to come back together about 5 o'clock, and we'll get your feedback from what you've been talking about then. I'm just having a look at the list. I can see it's 5 o'clock to see if we have everyone back with us. It looks like we have most people that have come back through, which is wonderful. Apologies to the couple of you that have had a couple technical difficulties. I hope that you've managed to have at least a bit of a conversation. Certainly a couple of people that were struggling to get anywhere have stayed here and chatted to us, and a couple of things that have come up in our conversations just now, I think, is really things around real life learning, and this is coming from young people, and the opportunity to really get them inspired by other young people. So the I Will films, and again, this is something we'll share the link to, something I'd highly recommend in terms of young people speaking to other young people, is that inspires them and why they get involved. So that's something important that perhaps really taps into that message about this being young people's agenda, and that opportunity to really think and talk to them about what will make the difference. The other thing that we were talking about is awareness of issues in relation to behaviour and managing those expectations, and I think that opportunity to really have a conversation about why we behave in certain ways in different spaces was something that was seen as a really valuable way to getting young people on board with how they should behave in different spaces where there may be families or dogs or other people using that space. So what I'd like to do is just briefly come to each breakout space in turn, and hopefully you had a kind volunteer in your group who's just going to briefly feedback to us 1 or 2 key points that you've been talking about. So if I come to breakout space 1, first of all, do we have a volunteer?
Yes, that's myself.
Wonderful. What kind of things were you talking about?
So we had quite a few people talking about working with schools and local partners and doing projects around outdoor learning with them. So that included things like bushcraft, photography, sand drawing, beach cleans, you know, doing wildlife counts, creating a wildlife garden as well. And a lot of these projects are particularly working with young people who are on the verge of, you know, leaving school, they're disengaged from learning, and this, you know, this might be the only chance for them to get any kind of certificates and qualifications. We also talked about linking the award in with the Duke of Edinburgh Award, so doing that as their volunteering or as part of their expeditions. And also the Family Learning Award that was talked about in the chat earlier, the Learner Won the Family Learning Award. So that sounded really inspirational as well. Doing some other activities as well that are quite practical, like building bird boxes, doing the kind of outdoor activities like kayaking and canoeing. And again, it's kind of looking at building the confidence and self-esteem, developing the kind of interpersonal skills. We had stuff about walking groups as well, so getting young people out and exploring their area, and how that allowed for kind of a relaxed conversation to happen between the leaders and the young people that, you know, it's quite different from sitting across a table with you. So they feel much more at ease to ask you questions and to talk about quite difficult subjects.
So much great stuff. Yeah. So sorry to
no, it's all right.
But no, I think you're mentioning such wonderful things. I think something that's really coming through there for me is just the creativity that's there in terms of activities that young people might enjoy, but also ways that they can get creative, experience things in different ways. I think that's really fantastic to hear, and particularly with that sense of space, open conversation, maybe even starting a dialogue in a different way. I think that's all really really wonderful to hear. So I think what we'll do is we'll just hop along to breakout space 2, and if we have a kind volunteer there, if you've got perhaps other points that came up in your discussion as well, it would be wonderful to hear from you.
I can volunteer. I don't think we actually agreed on a volunteer, but I've taken some notes, so I can try and round up.
Very kind.
So we just sort of shared lots of ideas. A few of us in our group were at the very early stages, hadn't really started any outdoor learning or experiences at the moment, but we started sharing some ideas that others had done or that we'd seen and liked the sound of. So utilising that locality, especially during this ease of lockdown, trying to find if there's any local interpretation boards that could increase sort of literacy skills whilst out and about locally, utilising your local pathways, coastal pathways, taking photos, encouraging active activities such as cycling and biking. One member of the group mentioned that they had an allotment, which is an amazing asset, which allowed the whole family to get involved as we come out of lockdown. And partnership working as we come out of lockdown might become more and more important as more and more people want access to these outdoor spaces. There was mention of the RSPB award because that was certified. The opportunity of free trees from the YouthLink Trust could pose a really great community project that will involve all young people and the wider community, utilising orienteering, treasure hunt, digital nature hunts, and Pinterest to generate some more ideas if you're at that block where you need some inspiration, and then obviously the traditional and already mentioned outdoor centres as well. But yeah, ours was just sort of lots of idea sharing.
Wow, so much great stuff there. Yeah, I think that's a really good way to demonstrate just how much you really can take outdoors in the different ways in. So that I would say for folk, if you find you give something a go and the young people that you work with maybe don't bite, they don't seem too interested, don't let that prevent you from trying it with a different group or trying it at a different time as well. There's so much out there, and I think that's a fantastic set of examples and activities to think about, and to think about trying what might really work. And yeah, so lovely to hear such variety. And if I skip along to the breakout, or what am I on? Breakout group 3. Do we have a volunteer from that group if you have anything to add, or anything maybe that was different that you covered in your group as well?
Yes, Lucy, that's me, yeah, no, pretty much covered most of things. We started talking about sort of the bushcraft, the hill walking, the more adventurous activity, and then we had a conversation about linking to the curriculum as well, and then we quickly sort of discussed as well the sort of go-to activities, and exactly pretty much the same as what folk have been talking about, and simply just asking young people to plan and to execute and enjoy a simple walk outdoors is probably one of the highlights that one of our members mentioned as well. Local beach cleans, tuning into sensories, sound maps, and the final point that was being made was around the opportunities of where we're at just now, with people maybe not choosing to go to cinemas and to do other things. Perhaps there is an opportunity to take engagement outdoors, but yeah, very similar to what Group 1 and Group 2 were talking about as well.
Brilliant, thanks Toby. Great to hear so much, so many ideas being shared. There's certainly loads out there as well that can help in terms of getting started, and something that's just come up from a couple people there that's been mentioned, that I will add a link to in the summary email. I mentioned 5 ways to wellbeing before. We have a lovely story of, it was a Prince's Trust group of young people, and they did a programme called Wild Ways Well, taking the 5 ways to wellbeing and really putting that into action. And something that came up from the young people themselves when they were asked as part of an evaluation what they'd got out of it, what did they like, what did they not like. The thing that they really enjoyed was going for walks, because it felt far better than PE, where they knew that they had to go and do a sport, an activity that was sort of non-negotiable, whereas going for a walk, they felt that there was so much to notice around them. They were exercising without really thinking about exercise. And so I think that comes back to some of the points that people have just mentioned there around it can be simple things that can be really engaging and offer some really fantastic opportunities. So thanks all. It sounds like you've had some wonderful discussions. And what we're going to do now is just cover a little bit of information about the John Muir Award, and that being a tool that can help you to get started, and also just highlight some more of these resources that are really great, that we know are really popular, and that can help you to get started. Or we will if I can change my slides. There we go. So in terms of awards in general, I think just a couple of things to highlight. If you're not aware of the awards network already, definitely go and check out their website. They're the network of youth awards in Scotland. The John Muir Award is just one of many awards. There's so much great stuff out there. RSPB Wild Challenge was one that was just mentioned there, and there's lots of great ways that can provide a bit of structure, that can provide something to work towards, maybe a bit more motivation, and that can also help to recognise and celebrate achievements of young people, and it's something tangible for them to work towards, and then to reference as well for the future. A couple other things, we see people getting involved in the John Muir Award in particular, perhaps for different reasons. So for some, and I know this is something that one of the groups mentioned, you're quite new to getting outdoors, awards can be a great way in. They can kind of offer a bit of a starting point to maybe try something new, particularly if you're a bit unsure. They can give that structure. For some of the rest of you, it might be that you already have some existing outdoor activities, but you're looking to maybe build on it, try something a bit different, do something a bit new. And for others, it might be that you're already doing loads of great outdoor activity, but an award like the John Muir Award might be a way to add value to that, and to wrap it up as a meaningful experience for the young people, so that they have that tangible outcome, that certificate, and that real sense of pride and achievement at the end of an award experience. So in terms of the John Muir Award itself, we're just going to cover a brief introduction. Key thing for me to say is that all of this information is available on our website, and that's where you can go to find out more. But in a nutshell, the John Muir Award is an environmental award scheme focused on wild places. And what we're looking for is for people to connect with, enjoy and care for those wild places. And that's what people achieve through the structure of the award. So we're all about awareness and responsibility, but also very much this sense of fun and getting out and exploring and noticing and doing different things outdoors. So it's the main engagement initiative of the John Muir Trust. And what I'd like to do is just show you a short 2.5 minute animation. This is something that's quite a new resource for us, and it's designed to just give a very brief overview of what's involved and the structure of the awards for challenges. So bear with me for just one moment while I change my screen across. She says very hopefully. So
one thing I did forget to mention in our group, we also spoke about Mission Explore John Muir, a suite of simple activities that can be done anywhere by anyone that are all Muir related. And yeah, I'll put a link further up, but we'll make sure we connect to those two.
Wonderful, thanks Toby. Bear with me, I've clicked the wrong button. Stop sharing, start sharing, here we go. Include audio, that's the thing I'm looking for. So as I said, this is just a short introduction to the award. Give me a shout, Toby, if the sound doesn't come through. Help if I take myself off mute. So hopefully that gives you just a brief overview of what's involved, and what I really hope is that you are seeing already how so many of the wonderful ideas that you've been talking about through the breakout spaces could fit into those 4 challenges that are really at the heart of the award. Now I'm going to have to stop speaking for just a second because I've discovered that I can't multitask and I need to pull my slides back up, so bear with me.
Just yeah, I must apologise for that catchy tune. I'm afraid it will be with you for the rest of the night now, and I can only apologise. I think it's called an earworm. I think that's what they call it.
Definitely, I've certainly just had a dance around the room. Right, let me skip back to where we were. So there were really just a couple of things I wanted to cover in relation to the award in particular. So I think this was already mentioned earlier, but the award is not just for young people. So last year we had over 43,000 people across the UK achieve a John Muir Award. Around 90% of those were under 25, but we also have adults that get involved, and we do have a family award as well. So if those are groups that you work with as well as young people, do keep that in mind when you're thinking about your activities and who they might be suited for. But in terms of why use the award in the youth sector in particular, just wanted to highlight a couple of things. So the award, when it was launched in 1997, it was very much inspired by youth work practices, and it can really be a tool to offer different ways in. So it might be something that motivates and engages young people to try something different at that early stage. It might be that skills development, that knowledge development, that kind of learning opportunity, and learning in a group of peers as well. As Jenny's talked to us about, this great opportunity around social action, giving something back, maybe creating connections in the local community, building that sense of place, that sense of ownership over where young people live, as well as challenging them to set their own goals, to lead, to develop independence. And progressing through award levels can be a really great way to move through these different aspects. So the graphic you can see in front of you is from the UK Youth Social Development Journey, and we see the award as something that can really be a good fit with supporting these different aspects of a young person's journey. And of course, ultimately, recognising achievement, celebrating achievement, and giving this opportunity for young people to succeed is really at the heart of why use an award in the first place. So in relation to this, I just wanted to flag up a few types of youth settings that we see people using the John Muir Award in. Not meant to be an exhaustive list at all, but we have a document called Youth Work, Nature and the John Muir Award, and in that you can find short examples of settings such as these, setting out why they've used the award, but also some aspects of how they've used it. So some sense maybe of what it looks like for different settings, whether that's youth justice, whether that's working with young asylum seekers and refugees in a college setting. So there's a huge amount of variety out there. And we also have a range of youth sector case studies on our website that can give a bit more detail and help maybe provide that, that ideas base to leap off and see what's worked well for other people. So we'll send you the link for that page, and this is our key place that I'd really like to direct you to. So as I mentioned, that youth work summary is on our website, but we have a suite of young people and nature web pages where you can find a variety of different things. There's something that we're constantly updating and going back to. So we've got a section on relevant research and feedback and impact summaries as well, including work around youth voices. There's some really interesting youth listening projects out there at the moment. There are some great examples of youth engagement and what that looks like in different settings, as well as different initiatives that might feed into that and help inspire people to get involved. We've also got some lovely young people films and stories, including a suite of short films that were created by a young filmmaker and that feature young people just talking about what nature means to me, what nature means to them, and what wild places mean to them. So I'd highly recommend going and having a look at that, and also some interesting links and campaigns around equality of access as well. So there's lots of great things that can be a bit of a starting point on those young people and nature web pages there. But I do also want to just direct you towards some other resources that we've mentioned some of these already and that might be particularly helpful for you. So some other things on our website that can be really useful. we have a suite of resource guides. These are thematic, so they look at what's already out there, they look at what people tell us they found really helpful and what they use, and just use that to signpost. So we've got resource guides on things like wildlife gardening that I know was mentioned earlier when you were sharing your ideas, but also topics like sustainability, campaigning, biodiversity, literacy and nature. If you're interested in, you've got groups that love creativity, that's a really great starting point to go and have a look at. So hopefully that might help for those of you that are maybe looking for that initial ideas boost to think about what you could do in wild places. We've also got a suite of stories about the John Muir Awards during the pandemic and the ways that people have got quite creative around remote support, about supporting people, supporting young people, but also their families in different ways. So if you're thinking that potentially remote support might still be an aspect of your work for a while, would definitely recommend going and having a look at that. I've also mentioned our youth sector case studies already, and we also have an education recovery summary that we wrote over the summer as well. And again, we'll share all of these links with you because I realise I'm talking quite fast and throwing quite a lot of things at you. So I know that Mission Explore, I've seen that pop up in the chat, and that's been mentioned already. So just a couple things I want to pull out and really direct you towards. So the Outdoor Learning Directory, that's a brilliant resource. It's a searchable portal, so you can go and have a look and see if you're looking for ideas, or if you've got an idea in mind but you don't have resources to help you get started with it. It's a great place to go and have a look at. Also in front of you there, you can see Reroute. So this is definitely something worth signposting young people towards. Reroute are Scotland's youth biodiversity panel, and the young people involved have pulled together a really great, really engaging web page, which is written by young people for young people, and there are tips about getting out into nature, there's ideas for walks, there's blogs, there's films. It's a really nice mix of resources. So if you're looking to hand over to young people and say, we're going to get outside, what do you want to do? That can be a really inspiring place to send them towards as well. I think sustainable development goals, that's something that's cropped up earlier. There's loads of great resources on there. So if they're interested in a particular issue, that can be a really useful place to go and have a look at. Loads of great films in particular on their site. And below that, you'll see Transform Our World. So this one's definitely worth highlighting in terms of youth social action and thinking about issues such as climate anxiety as well as climate action. They've got some really useful toolkits and youth advocacy resources designed to help young people kind of find their voice and use it and influence and amplify the things that they want to see to change. So that's definitely worth a look as well. Anything I've missed there, colleagues of mine, that you that we haven't highlighted already? I've lost track from our discussions.
No, I think that's pretty comprehensive. I thoroughly recommend the 5 Ways to Wellbeing. That's a really good, simple, research-based guide to improving people's well-being. That's from the New Economics Foundation, and there's also some emerging stuff from University of Derby around, again, a very simple research-based framework on nature connectedness. So yeah, if you're looking for just simple starting points, and there was a question from earlier about demonstrating impact and convincing bosses that this is important, then the 5 Ways to Wellbeing and the 5 Pathways to Nature Connection, as I say, are all research-based pieces of work that offer a really simple framework to improve and add benefits to the young people you work with.
I think that's a really good point. It's not always the young people that you need to persuade to get involved with these things. It might be colleagues, it might be management, or perhaps helpers and partners as well. So yeah, thanks for that, Toby. So as I said, if you are keen to receive a summary email when you complete the evaluation, and we'll share the link at the end, these are the kind of resources that we'll be signposting you towards, so that you have them there, whether that's for next week and planning soon, or whether that's something to come back to in maybe a couple of months when you have a particular group that you're looking to get off the ground with. The last couple of things for me, and then we'll have some time. If you've got any questions, you might like to think about starting to type those into the chat box for us. The John Muir Award is very much designed to be accessible, and it's not something that you need to complete training in order to get involved with and to plan and to run at all. So everything that you need is available on our website, and obviously, of course, you can talk to us as well. But we do appreciate that some people appreciate like an opportunity to get a bit more in depth, to really think about the award, think about how it's going to look and work for them in their particular setting. So if that sounds like something that appeals, we have adapted our training offer at the moment and are running online introduction to the John Muir Award courses. So we have one date coming up later this month, which is the 18th of August, and you can find out more about that on our website if that sounds like it might be of interest to you. So it's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour. Thank you all so much for your contributions. It's felt really buzzy, and there's so many great ideas that I'm really happy that you've all shared. So these are the things that we've covered today, and I hope that taking through some of these benefits, the concerns and challenges that you might have, and some ideas perhaps on how you could mitigate those, thinking about the YouthLink Scotland resources and guidance that are there to help you to particularly through this recovery phase, and this introduction to the John Muir Award. Hopefully all of that will give you some ideas, some starting points, and a bit of a launch pad to go and think about what's going to be right for you in your setting and for the young people that you work with in terms of what they want to get out of getting outdoors and getting into wild places a bit more. As I said, if you have any questions, please do feel free to type those into the chat box. I'll be hanging around for a few minutes, so I'm more than happy to chat to people, particularly if you've got questions maybe specific to where you work or who you work with. In your joining instructions, you hopefully received the link to the evaluation, but you can also see it on front of you on the screen, and I can see it's been shared in the chat box as well. We would really value any feedback that you have on the session. As I said, this is something that's quite new for us. I know that many of us have been working online perhaps much more than we would have earlier in the year. So any feedback that you have is really helpful. This will help us inform future sessions. And there's also a space in there that if you want to receive a summary email, you can sign up for that. Worth me saying, your responses to the couple of questions that we have aren't going to be associated with the email. Your email address for that is only going to be used for the purposes of sending you an email. I'll leave that evaluation open until probably Tuesday next week to give you a chance to fill it in, and then after that I'll take it off so that I can get those email addresses, and we'll get that summary email out to you by mid next week. We'll also hope to include a link to a recording of the session that you can share with colleagues and access as well. So you've got our email addresses on the slide there, and if anyone has any questions, then do feel free to pop them in the chat box, or as people start to go, feel free to turn your microphones on and have a chat, and I'll hang around for about 5 minutes. But thanks very much for joining us. Hopefully you've got some good ideas, and hopefully you get to get outside soon.
Thanks, Lucy. Thank you very much. Absolutely amazing. Loads of information to pack in, really well managed. I've got a comment here, really great presentation, good to share with others. And Ruth is saying thank you, loads of notes and ideas now, smiley face. So yeah, well done. And thanks to Jenny Snell from YouthLink Scotland. Really appreciate the partnership. It's great to get your expertise in, and thanks to our Jenny for organising the breakout rooms as well. So yeah, we're going to be around a while, so do come and talk. If you don't want to put stuff in the chat box, turn on your mics and come and talk to us. It's always nice as well. But no, thanks once again.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.